She unlocked the door to our lake house with the same key I'd handcrafted for her birthday, and walked inside to be with someone else. It was a small sound that gave her away. Just a metallic click. I was halfway down the gravel path from the woodshed when I heard it. My boots froze against the mossy stones. The lake behind me was still, mirrored in late October gray. I wasn't supposed to be here. Neither was she. 12 years of marriage. I'd built this place with my own hands, every beam, every hinge, every lock. Including that key. She used to say it was the most romantic thing I'd ever done. We'd had our anniversary dinner here, our first snowstorm here, even our first real fight. This wasn't just a building. It was us. Memories sealed into cedar walls and wood smoke. That key meant something. Until it didn't. I ducked behind the pines that lined the front porch, heart pounding so loud I swore she'd hear it. Through the window, I saw her silhouette move through the entryway. Coat off. Scarf down. A second figure followed. Male. Tall. Confident. Not hurried or ashamed. Like he belonged there. He touched her back like he'd done it 1,000 times. I didn't breathe. We'd called it our sanctuary. A place to disconnect from the world, no Wi-Fi, no clocks. Just firelight, books, old records. We hadn't been there together in months. She said it made her sad to see it empty, that she went alone sometimes to clean, to remember us. She said it helped her think. Now I was watching her pour wine into glasses I'd carved our initials into. M+L, Mason and Lena. I backed away like I was retreating from a cliff edge. My truck was parked half a mile down the road to keep the engine from giving me away. I needed to disappear before she saw me. But my legs wouldn't move. Instead, I stayed. And watched. They sat on the couch. Her head tilted in that way she always did when she was listening closely, only it wasn't my voice she was hanging on. He brushed hair from her face. She didn't flinch. I saw her smile. Not the polite smile she gave to clients or cashiers. The one she used to give me after dinner, curled up on that very same couch. That smile was mine. I should have walked away. Driven home. Called a lawyer. Something. But I stayed. I watched them eat. She served him pasta, my pasta. The garlic and parmesan thing I used to make every winter, the one she said was her favorite. She must have memorized it. I never taught her the recipe. After they ate, she brought out a quilt. The green one. My grandmother's. I watched as she tucked herself into it beside him. A private ritual, stolen and repurposed. They didn't kiss. Not while I was watching. But there was no mistaking the intimacy. Her foot grazed his. His hand rested on her thigh. They laughed at something on her phone. And then, the moment that broke me, she leaned her head against his shoulder. Not just affection. Familiarity. I'd seen enough. And yet, I stayed another hour. A full hour. The real betrayal wasn't sex. Not even the secret. It was watching her laugh. Genuinely. Like she used to with me. I hadn't seen that laugh in years. Not for me. But it had never left her, it had just been redirected. That laugh was mine. I didn't confront her that night. I drove home in silence. Left no tracks. Said nothing. But something had cracked in me. Something cold and sharp. Because I knew what that sound was now. The click of the lock. The weight of the key. I'd made her that key. And she used it to let someone else into our home. That night, I sat in the dark of our garage, the key grinder still warm from the last copy I'd made hours earlier. The irony wasn't lost on me, surrounded by brass blanks, engravers, spools of custom tags, and yet, the one lock I couldn't control was the one closest to me. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her curled into him beneath that green quilt. Our quilt. The man's face had never turned enough for me to see it fully. Just a sliver of profile, clean-shaven, maybe early 40s. Not a stranger. Not to her. Who was he? I thought about waking her that night. Asking. Prying it from her lips while the image was fresh in my mind. But I didn't want her lies yet. I wanted her truth, and I knew she wouldn't give it to me freely. So I waited. The next morning, she came home around 10. I was already downstairs, sipping bitter coffee like it was penance. She walked in wearing the same jacket from last night. A smear of lipstick she hadn't caught in the rearview. A perfume that wasn't hers. "Morning," she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I flinched without meaning to. She paused, barely. "Everything okay?" I forced a nod. "Yeah. Just didn't sleep well." She made toast. Talked about traffic. Mentioned a work thing coming up next weekend, a retreat or a conference, she said. Same vague tone. Same shrug of indifference. I watched her fingers wrap around the coffee mug. No ring. She never wore it on business weekends. Claimed it was to avoid attention, to stay focused. I used to believe that. Now I knew what she wore instead. I spent the day going through her drawers. Not to catch her. To understand her. I wasn't proud of it. But after watching your wife laugh in another man's arms, privacy feels like a courtesy you can't afford. I didn't find much at first. A second phone charger in her overnight bag. A small velvet pouch tucked in her makeup case. It used to hold the bracelet I gave her for our 10th anniversary. Now it held condoms. My breath caught. They were a different brand than we ever used. Ribbed. Her little secret, nestled between mascara and travel perfume. Still, I didn't say a word. That evening, I sat across from her during dinner. Chicken and rice. Candle flickering between us like it was trying to light something that had already gone cold. She told me about a client meltdown. I nodded. Pretended. She didn't notice the way I looked at her. She never noticed anymore. After she went to bed, I opened my laptop. I started with her email. She wasn't careless, but comfort breeds sloppiness. Found a message labeled, "Thank you, T." The address was a burner. The message itself, brief. Last night was everything. I needed that. Same time next week. I closed the laptop. I could hear her breathing upstairs. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. There was only this dense, immovable pressure behind my ribs. Grief, compressed into something too quiet to scream. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted understanding. And then I wanted silence. Because I knew if I asked her tonight, she'd lie. And I wanted her truth to rot inside her long before she ever tried to explain. The week that followed moved like fog, quiet, shapeless, impossible to grasp. She went to work. I pretended to. We shared coffee in the mornings. Silent dinners in the evenings. Her phone never left her side. Her smile came and went like weather. But inside me, everything was shifting. I started collecting details. The lake house booking, for example. I checked the online calendar she didn't know I had access to, the one we used years ago when we still coordinated schedules like a team. She'd marked it as solo writing retreat. That made me laugh. Bitterly. I'd never seen her write anything longer than a grocery list. I noted her next trip. Another conference in Asheville. 3 nights. Booked under her name, but not alone. 2 guests on the reservation. I called the hotel, pretended to be her assistant. They confirmed the details without blinking. Friday to Monday. King Suite. 2 breakfasts included. So it wasn't just the lake house. I started timing things. How long her showers lasted when she came home. How often she turned her phone screen away from me. How she tucked her charger into her purse instead of leaving it by the bed. None of it proved anything. But all of it proved everything. I think the worst part was how easy she made it for me. She didn't even try to hide it. Not really. Not in the ways that mattered. Because she wasn't afraid of losing me. She thought I would never leave. And maybe that's what hurt most. On Saturday, I followed her. She told me she was meeting a client for coffee. Said I could come if I wanted, but her voice was light, dismissive. She knew I wouldn't. And I didn't. Not right away. I waited 10 minutes. Then I took my car, stayed 2 blocks behind. Watched her park downtown, walk into a boutique cafe I'd never heard her mention. Not once. 5 minutes later, he arrived. Same man. I recognized the walk. The shape of his shoulders. The casual confidence of someone who knew he was wanted. They didn't kiss. But they might as well have. He placed a hand on her lower back like it belonged there. She didn't flinch. Didn't glance around. Inside, they ordered something. Sat close in a corner booth. Laughed. Her laugh, God, that laugh, made my stomach twist. I hadn't heard it in our house in over a year. I snapped a photo. Just one. Not for evidence. For memory. I watched for 20 minutes, then left. I couldn't bear to see her touch him again. Back home, the house felt like a museum. Full of artifacts that no longer belonged to me. Our wedding photo on the mantel. Her scarf still hanging by the door. The wine glasses I refused to throw out because they matched the lake house set. I sat on the stairs and stared at nothing. Hours passed. When she came home, she kissed my head like nothing had changed. I pretended to be asleep. That night, I opened my photo of them at the cafe. I zoomed in, not on her, but on him. His face was clearer now. I ran it through reverse image search, expecting nothing. But something came up. His name was Thomas Reed. Divorced. Vice president at a real estate firm in the city. He'd been interviewed last year for a local magazine article titled, Men Who Move Mountains. Apparently, he moved wives too. I read every word. His quotes about loyalty. About building trust with clients. About long-term partnerships. I laughed so hard I nearly woke her. Thomas. A man with ambition, a Rolex, and a carefully maintained jawline. And now, apparently, a taste for other people's sanctuaries. The irony? The article mentioned he'd bought a property by a lake. Not ours. A different one. But still. Water must have been his thing. I didn't sleep that night either. But for the first time, I didn't feel helpless. Or broken. I felt still. Like the silence before a storm. Because now, I had a name. And soon, he'd know mine too. The next morning, I drove to the lake house alone. Not to confront her. Not yet. Just to sit in the ruin she didn't know I'd seen. The air was colder than I remembered. Everything looked smaller. The chipped mug still sat by the sink. Her sweater, the navy one she used to steal from me, hung on the hook by the back door. The throw pillows on the couch were flattened from their last use. It smelled like cedar and betrayal. I walked room to room, taking inventory. Not of objects, but of echoes. Her laughter in the reading nook. Her voice asking what wine we had left. Her silence, the last time we stayed here, when I thought it was just stress. I found one of her earrings on the bathroom counter. Not one of her usual ones. This was different, sleek, modern. Gold. Probably new. Probably for him. I placed it on the windowsill. Let the sun hit it. Let it gleam like a warning. I wasn't sure what I was doing yet. Only that I needed to be there. Like touching a bruise to prove it still hurts. The lake was silent. No ducks. No wind. Just the ripple of cold water tapping the dock. I sat in the Adirondack chair and closed my eyes. And I remembered the last time she told me she loved me. It was spring. We'd come out for the weekend. She wore that linen dress, the one with tiny blue flowers. We grilled burgers, drank beer straight from the bottle. And when the fire died down, she leaned into me and whispered it like a promise. I love you, she said, like she meant it. And maybe she did. Back then. Maybe love isn't a permanent thing. Maybe it just lives where it's welcomed. And dies quietly when ignored. But I didn't kill it. I know that now. When I got back home, she was gone. I wasn't surprised. She'd left a note on the counter. Meeting tea for dinner. Don't wait up. Tea, no longer even trying. I didn't get angry. I copied the handwriting. Studied the loops in her lowercase t, the slight curve in her s. Then I took out a pad of paper and wrote a note of my own. It read. I hope tonight's worth it. I left it in her overnight bag. She never mentioned it. But 2 days later, I found it torn in half in the trash. She'd read it. She just didn't care. That night, I ordered a burner phone. New SIM. New number. I downloaded a text masking app and sent a message to Thomas from a random local number. Does Lena's husband know yet? No reply. I didn't expect one. But I saw him pause his account. The same day, his Instagram went dark. His LinkedIn locked. The article about him was suddenly inaccessible, paywalled. Panic has a digital fingerprint. The next morning, Lena was quiet. Distracted. She barely touched her coffee. Her phone buzzed once and she jumped. I pretended not to notice. At dinner, she was late. She claimed traffic. I checked her GPS history when she showered, still shared to my iCloud from years ago. She hadn't been in traffic. She'd been in a parking lot downtown for 40 minutes. Waiting. For him. But he never came. I smiled at the thought. Not because I'd won anything. Not yet. But because, for the first time in months, she didn't look so certain. It started with silence. Not the absence of sound, but the kind that creeps into a marriage when something vital has stopped breathing. Lena didn't speak to me that Friday morning. She moved through the kitchen like I wasn't there, like the life we'd built had already been archived in her mind. But I was watching. Every flick of her eyes. Every distracted reach for her phone. Every moment she flinched when I got too close. She was unraveling, and she didn't even know I was holding the other end of the thread. That afternoon, I went to Thomas's office building. Not to confront him. Not yet. Just to see the place where he pretended to be a professional while sleeping with another man's wife. Corner office. 10th floor. I watched from across the street. Saw him step out once, glance both ways like someone expecting bad news. He looked over his shoulder twice. Good. Let the shadow catch up to him. Back home, Lena was already dressed when I walked in. Black dress. Red lipstick. Too much perfume. Dinner thing, she said, not looking up from the mirror. With a client? I asked, my voice flat. She hesitated. Yeah. A beat too long. I nodded. You look nice. She blinked like I'd spoken in another language. Then forced a smile. Thanks. I watched her leave. Her heels clicked down the front steps like gunshots. I waited exactly 15 minutes, then followed. She drove downtown. Parked behind a boutique hotel. Walked in with her coat tied around her shoulders like it could hide what she was. I didn't follow her inside. Instead, I waited. 42 minutes. Long enough for plans to collapse. When she came out, her posture had changed. Stiff. Defensive. She looked around before stepping back into the cold. No smile. No one beside her. She walked like someone who'd been stood up. Thomas was learning. When she came home, I was watching a documentary about whales. She stared at the screen like it was foreign. I didn't acknowledge her. She poured a glass of wine and sat across from me. "You okay?" she asked. I shrugged. "Long day." She watched me for a while. Then, "You've been different lately." I turned the volume up by 2 notches. She waited. Sighed. Left the room. And that's when I realized the most dangerous part wasn't that she was cheating. It was that she still thought I didn't know. That weekend, I planted the final piece. A fake envelope. Stamped, sealed, official looking. Addressed to her. I left it on the kitchen counter while I went out for groceries. Inside was a folded sheet of paper, blank. When I came back, the envelope was gone. Not a word. Not a question. But later, her phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. She stepped outside to answer. I let her. Let her wonder who had sent it. Let her ask herself how deep the cracks had gone. The next morning, she cooked breakfast. Eggs. Bacon. Toast with strawberry jam, the kind I used to love before I learned to swallow bitterness better than sugar. We sat together in silence, forks clinking. She said, "We should go to the lake house soon. Just us." I met her eyes. Held them. "Sure," I said. She smiled. But her hands were shaking. We didn't speak much that week. But her eyes said plenty. They searched my face during dinner, scanned my hands while I read, lingered a second too long when I'd pass her in the hallway. She was trying to read me like a book she'd forgotten how to open. She still thought I didn't know. But now, she suspected I might. I could feel it. That Saturday, I laid the next stone. I left early, told her I was helping a friend fix a doorframe across town. She nodded. Kissed my cheek. Wished me luck. But I didn't go to help a friend. I drove to a lawyer's office instead. Parked around back. Went in through a side door. I didn't file anything, not yet. But I asked the questions that mattered. Protecting assets. Dividing property. Digital forensics, even. The lawyer, a calm woman with sharp eyes, told me something I wasn't ready for. "She's emotionally gone, Mason. By the time most people cheat, they've already left. Their body just hasn't caught up." I nodded. I already knew. But hearing it aloud pressed the air from my lungs. Afterward, I drove to the lake house. Again. Something pulled me there like gravity. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was power. Maybe I needed to walk through the ashes while they were still warm. When I arrived, the front door was locked. But the key was still under the flower pot, like always. Her key. The one I made for her. I walked through slowly. Room by room. Every space was quiet. But not untouched. Her mug on the sink. Her sweater on the hook. But this time, something new. A note. Folded. Left on the coffee table. My name written on the front in her handwriting. Mason. I stared at it for a long time before touching it. I didn't open it there. I didn't need to. I knew what it would say. An apology. A rationalization. Maybe even a goodbye. But I didn't open it. Instead, I slid it into my coat pocket. Carried it with me like a live grenade. Unread. Unexploded. When I returned home, she was in the kitchen. Her face lit up when she saw me. "You're back early," she said. I nodded. Job didn't take long. She stepped closer, touched my chest lightly. "I've been thinking," she said. "About us." I said nothing. "I know things haven't been perfect lately," she went on, her eyes now glossy, "but I want to fix that. I do. I want to try again." She didn't say what needed fixing. She didn't say the words. She wanted me to forgive what she hadn't confessed. I reached into my coat pocket. Felt the note. Felt my fingers tremble around its edges. But I left it there. "I want that too," I said. She exhaled, relief flooding her face. She leaned in to kiss me. And I let her. But inside, I was already gone. The thing about pretending is, it changes you. Pretending to be okay. Pretending to love. Pretending not to know. The mask stops being a mask after a while. It becomes your skin. And I wore mine flawlessly. We went to brunch with her sister that Sunday. I watched her cut into waffles and nod along to stories. I smiled at the right moments. Touched her arm when I needed to. No one suspected a thing. But inside, I was a storm. I hadn't read the note. It burned in my jacket pocket all day like a live ember. I took it out once while she was in the shower, placed it on the table, stared at it like it was a coiled snake. Still, I didn't open it. That night, I made love to her for the first time in weeks. Not out of passion. Not out of forgiveness. I needed to see if I could feel anything. Afterward, she cried. "I've missed us," she whispered against my chest. I didn't answer. She fell asleep quickly. I didn't. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many nights she'd whispered that same sentence to someone else. Monday morning, I woke up before her. Took her phone from the nightstand. It was locked, but not to me. She hadn't changed the passcode. 4 digits. Our wedding date. The irony made me laugh. I scrolled. Carefully. Slowly. She deleted most of it. But she wasn't meticulous. In her deleted folder were screenshots. Messages. Photos. A hotel receipt. A picture of Thomas's hand holding hers across a wine-stained table. A selfie of her in lingerie I'd never seen before, labeled, "For later red heart." I didn't cry. I saved them all. Sent them to myself. Then deleted every trace of what I'd done. When she woke, I was making coffee. Smiling. Light humming under my breath. "Morning," she said, groggy. "Morning," I echoed. She kissed my neck. "You seem lighter today." "I am," I replied. Because I was. I'd stopped waiting for her to come clean. Stopped hoping she'd say the words. She wouldn't. She couldn't. So I would write the ending myself. That afternoon, I printed the photos. On heavy paper. Folded them into an envelope. No note this time. Just images. Evidence. Truth in color. Then I drove to Thomas's office again. Parked. Waited. When he stepped outside to take a call, I walked across the street. Placed the envelope on the windshield of his car. Locked eyes with him as I did it. He froze. I smiled. Didn't say a word. Turned. And walked away. When I got home that evening, Lena was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables like nothing in the world could touch her. "Smells good," I said. She turned, smiled. Thought I'd make that stew you like. I nodded. Set my keys down. Hung up my jacket. The note was still in the pocket. Still unopened. We ate in silence. She talked about her day. I nodded, laughed in the right places. My heart was steady. Too steady. Halfway through the meal, her phone buzzed. She reached for it. Paused. A long pause. Then she flipped it over without reading the screen. Work stuff, she mumbled. I said nothing. She didn't touch her wine after that. Later, as we curled into bed, she clung to me tighter than usual. Her fingers tangled in mine. Her breath shallow against my collarbone. Something was shifting. And she felt it. The next day, she took the day off. Said she needed a mental health day. She never did that. Not once in 12 years. I knew why. She spent most of the day outside. Sitting on the porch swing. Phone in hand. Staring into the trees. Waiting for a call that wouldn't come. I gave her space. Acted like nothing was wrong. By evening, she was pacing. When I stepped outside with her tea, she jumped. You okay? I asked. She nodded too quickly. Yeah. Just, tired. She didn't look tired. She looked terrified. And that's when I finally read the note. Not in front of her. Not with her watching. I took it into the garage after she went to bed. Unfolded it with hands that didn't shake. It read. Mason. If you ever find this, it means I finally grew a conscience. I've made mistakes. Terrible ones. And I've hurt the only person who ever truly saw me. I don't know if I'm writing this because I want forgiveness, or because I know I don't deserve it. You were always too good to me. Too patient. Too honest. I'm sorry. For everything. L. That was it. No dates. No names. No explanations. Just a whisper of guilt that came too late. I folded it slowly. Lit a match. Watched it burn. The next morning, I left an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside it was a copy of the hotel receipt, the screenshots, the photo of her and Thomas holding hands. No message. Just proof. I didn't wait to see her find it. I packed a single duffel bag, took the truck, and drove north. Didn't answer when she called. Didn't respond to her texts. I just kept driving. Toward silence. Toward peace. Toward myself. 3 days passed before I turned my phone back on. 42 missed calls. 26 voicemails. 84 texts. The last one was only 4 words. Please just come home. But it wasn't home anymore. Home doesn't lie to you. Home doesn't look you in the eyes and say, I love you, while erasing someone else's fingerprints from the sheets. I rented a small cabin near the border. 1 room. No TV. No Wi-Fi. Just the sound of wind through trees and the occasional crack of branches under deer hooves. It was the first place I'd felt real silence in months. I slept for 16 hours the first night. No dreams. Just darkness. The next morning, I made coffee on a stove older than I was. Sat by the window. Watched frost melt off the pine needles. And I started to feel clean. Not healed. But clean. She still hadn't stopped messaging. I read none of it. But the notifications kept appearing, like knocks I refused to answer. And then, on the 4th day, I got one from an unknown number. Just a name. Thomas. Then. I didn't know she was married. I'm sorry, man. I really am. I didn't reply. Because it didn't matter anymore. He was just another man chasing a woman who didn't belong to anyone, not even herself. That night, I opened my email. Drafted a message to Lena. Short. Sharp. Final. Lena. I saw everything. I know everything. I stayed long enough to give you a chance to be honest. You never took it. There's nothing left to fix. Don't contact me again. M. I hovered over the send button for 10 whole minutes. Then I clicked. I don't know what she did when she read it. Cried. Screamed. Threw her phone across the room. All I know is, she didn't reply. And that silence was the first true thing she'd given me in years. It's been 2 months now. No texts. No calls. Just silence. I hear she moved out of the house. Left most of her things behind. A neighbor told me she cried on the porch one morning. Just sat there in my old hoodie, shaking, like grief had finally remembered her address. I didn't go back. I let it all go. The lake house sits empty. Still in my name. I changed the locks. Burned the spare keys. Even hers. Especially hers. I kept one thing, though. The green quilt. Folded it into a box and stored it in the attic of the cabin where I now live. It doesn't smell like her anymore. Just cedar. I started therapy. It's not poetic. No huge revelations. Just slow stitches where the tear used to be. I walk more. Drink less. Sleep in when the world allows it. Some mornings I still wake with her name on my breath. Other days, I forget she ever existed until someone says, "infidelity," on the radio. Thomas never reached out again. I don't hate him. He was just a shadow in her story. A symptom, not the sickness. She made her choices. And I made mine. One day I might love again. But not today. Today, I'm sitting by the lake. Not our lake. A different one. Quieter. Smaller. No ghosts in the water. The sun is setting. The sky bleeds orange into lavender. I have a cup of coffee in one hand. The cold air tastes like beginning. And for the first time in a long, long time, I don't miss her. Not her laugh. Not her warmth. Not even the way she once said my name like it was something holy. Because she used my key to open a door she never intended to keep closed. And I finally walked through one she never thought I would.